back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. The Business of Being Black today is Black racist. Kim, what is anti-racism? And do you believe that all Black people are anti-racist?
Yeah, anti-racism is being starkly against racism, but particularly it is in action, being starkly against racism in action and understanding what that means systemically. Do I believe that can you ask me that question again? Do I believe that all Black people are anti-racist? Is that what you're asking? No, absolutely not. For one, I don't know that we all necessarily always know what that means in our day-to-day life. Listen, societal norms have basically outlined for us what is right and what is wrong. And so the way that we have experienced this country around societal norms looks a certain way. So I'll give you an example. When we work with organizations and we do an assessment, and people within the organization, whether they are Black or any other race, and notice that these white men for the most part, or white women, and say, I still believe that I can move up in this organization and that I have the same opportunities as other folks. That is then directly connected to societal norms, because we continue to see that white men in the workplace are quote unquote leaders. And so in that, I think, well, that's normal. So I can probably still move up in this organization. There is a cognitive dissonance that can happen if you do not actively decolonize your way of thinking and your way of seeing this world, and also in the way that you experience and implement the way that you live in this world.
Against white people?
Yes, but I did want to tackle back on the anti-racism bit. Yeah. Because anti-racism is actually a rebrand of a Marxist re-education that was used during the Cultural Revolution under Mao Zedong. I know this because I've studied these Marxist tactics and have actually spoken to someone who escaped Mao's regime. And it's literally the same template, and all it is putting one class of people against another class of people. And as Kim mentioned, sort of reframing your mindset. It's that re-education. It's basically brainwashing. And the consequence of anti-racism has resulted in Black and white people being very overtly racist to specifically Black conservatives or Black Republicans. That's what it's resulting in. But I'm sorry, what was your question again?
No, go right ahead. I'll move on.
Well, can I pop in real quick? Because if a Black person disagrees with someone who's a conservative who is Black, that doesn't mean they're racist. That means they don't agree with the values and the beliefs of a Black conservative. That's it. So to throw in the fact that just because I don't agree with you because you're Black means that I'm racist towards you in some way, I don't agree with that. And to me,
that's not what I said.
That's what it sounded like.
No, I said something else. Yeah. Anyways, what was your question?
I'm going to say, go ahead and explain GOTHIX if you wanted to. Move on. Would a racist comment or action cause a more significant impact on a Black person than on a white person? For instance, let's take 911 calls. I mean, we saw on a couple of occasions now via viral videos where one or a man has said, I'm going to call the police on you and I'm going to tell them you're Black. How does that make a difference if racism doesn't exist?
I'm sorry, do you want me to?
No, go ahead, GOTHIX.
Okay. In those instances, I'm also very cautious about the things that get publicized on media, because the media has a tendency to focus on one thing and exacerbate. And now all of a sudden you think we have like 5 million barbecue Beckys that are calling the cops on Black people just trying to have a picnic, which is not the case. We have to also remember that in these situations, people get very tense, they get agitated, they react. I'm sure we've all been in situations where we've wanted to argue with someone and we said something that we regretted saying later. This is no different. I would hope that they wouldn't pick up the phone and call the police on a Black person, but unfortunately, we have to consider that. What are the impulses? How is this person responding to this altercation? Or are they just specifically acting out of malice? And I don't think it's the latter.
But I don't think there would ever be an episode where a Black person could call 911 and then suggest a white man is chasing after me, or a white woman is chasing after me.
You know what they do?
I don't think the reaction is the same.
You know what I have seen from the, and again, just looking at the few videos that I've seen online of this, because I know that not everyone in the Black community acts this way, but what they will do is pull out their phone and then record an instance that they perceive as someone being a Karen or something being racist. And now that person on the receiving end loses their job. They might lose their kids. They might get harassed. All because the public perceived a 60-second interaction as a racist interaction.
Dr. Walker.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. OMOWALE, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that our emotional overreaction to racist incidents is just due to our political immaturity. Kwame Ture once said that if a white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. But if he has the power to lynch me, then that's my problem, right? So racism always goes back to power, which why, in my opinion, to be an anti-racist is actually it's a fundamentally silly assertion, right? The only group of people on the planet who are anti-racist are Black people. And the reason why that is just based upon our experience with racism. We've been burdened, right, by racism. We've been the victims of racism, right? But all groups, every single group of people on this planet that has a desire to see their group survive, right, they are going to create racial institutions to both protect and privilege their group. It's only us as Black people who don't understand that. And until we mature our understanding of racism and actually get really good at it on our own, we're going to continue to suffer and be the victims of racism, which is why I have a problem with the definition put forth where you make the statement that Black people can't be racist because racism requires power and prejudice, because that particular definition makes the assumption that Black people don't have the ability to build the power. And if you tell Black people that, it keeps us in a position where we're always at the whims of another group that is more powerful, and we don't take steps towards establishing and building racial institutions.
OMOWALE, I love that thought, but I want a crystal clear example of what you mean when you say there are other groups who give themselves power, whereas Black people don't. How so?
Every single group on the planet, a racial institution, right? Whether it is an ethnic group, right? We all have class consciousness, we all have ethnic consciousness, and we all have racial consciousness, right? White people are hyper aware of their minority status on the planet, and them being a minority of the global population on the planet, they set up and they erect institutions to protect themselves. And when they come in contact with other groups of people, the institutions are meant to play the role to keep those people at the bottom and keep white people protected and privileged. All groups are going to do that, right? If, for an example, historically, even here within Black America, when we talk about like the Black dollar and buying Black, right? These are racial decisions. We're doing this because we understand that every decision that I make as a Black person is either going to strengthen my group or weaken my group. If I make the decision to marry a white woman, then that's going to weaken us as a group. If I spend my money outside of the group, that's going to weaken us at a group. And in fact, if you want to talk about an example, European Jews practice this principle better than anybody on the planet. And that's not to single them out. But when you talk about power and racial institutions, I mean, even if you look at the state of Israel, it's an ethno-nationalist society that they develop for themselves and for their protection. So it's a very simple principle that we just don't understand. And as Nellie Fuller states, if you don't understand racism, white supremacy, everything that you think you know will only confuse you.
Wow, Dr. Walker.
Yeah, so I want to respond to something. I want to use you because I know, Tammi, you want to be clear examples. So let's talk about the Tulsa massacre, right? We just recently, a few months ago, recognized the commemorated the centennial, right? So let's talk about that because my colleague talked about power and we talked about racism, right? So Tulsa was a thriving Black community with a movie theater and Black people doing well. So this is different when we talk about power and control. It was massacred, right? Black men, women, and children were murdered. Right. So the difference in we talk about the Black dollar, my colleague mentioned the Black dollar as an example of Black people being self-sufficient, which we always are. But then the difference between being what is power and control. and examples of what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in terms of the murder of men, women, and children. I highlight that example also because I know GOTHIX is talking about, racism in terms of, those things happened a long time ago. Tulsa example is an example. There were still people who were alive during the Tulsa massacre, during the commemoration just a few months ago. I'll highlight another example. Jim Crow ended in 1965 with the Civil Rights Movement. So with the Voting Rights Act. My parents, aunt, uncle, and family members experienced Jim Crow. So when we talk about things that happened a long time ago, we're not talking about a long time ago. We're talking about when I talked to my mother earlier today, she was alive during Jim Crow, and she's not that old. So I highlighted those examples as we have a historical understanding of when we talk about power and control, and when we talk about what systemic racism is and what it is today. Is that we've endured it for more than 400 years, and hasn't gone away, and it certainly hasn't gone away because Black people collectively haven't decided to fight it, because we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
We're right back on Business of Being Black with Tammi and Mac. Don't go anywhere.